you look at a photograph or image, what you see is a representation of objects. And if you zoom in on an image, and what the computer is actually reproducing is little squares of different colors that when they come together at a distance produce the object or the image that you're looking at. What the computer is doing to represent that image is actually reading data. And in Adobe Photoshop Elements, you should know that there are two color models that are used by the program, and those models are HSB and RGB. Now, what are HSB and RGB? Well, HSB is a color model that's based on the way that the human eye sees color. And the human eye sees color in ranges of hue, saturation, and brightness. Now, RGB is used because it's the way computer monitors display color through mixing red, green, and blue together in various levels. Now, in Adobe Photoshop Elements, you have 4 different image modes that you can choose from. And if you want to view these image modes, you can view them up here in Image, click that, and come down to Mode. And here are the 4 image modes that you can choose from. You have bitmap, grayscale, index color, and RGB mode. Now, as you can see from the current image that we have up, there's a checkbox next to RGB color. So that means that the current image mode that we are in is the RGB color mode. Now, the RGB color mode is the one that contains the most colors. In the RGB color mode, you have red, green, and blue components in your image, and each one of those components, red, green, and blue, is assigned an intensity number that ranges from 0 to 255. Now, the 0 represents black, so in a dark green, for instance, the green number is going to be close to 0 because it's a dark green. If it was a light green, it would be closer to the 255 range. While the RGB mode is great for editing because you have a large number of colors you can choose from, it does give you a larger file size, and you may want to, when you're done, convert it to a different mode. Specifically, you may want to go to index color. Now, how you convert it is you go back up to your menu bar and you go to Image, and you go to Mode, and then just click Index Color, and Photoshop Elements is going to convert it to index color. And now, it changed slightly, but for the most part, it looks the same. So what exactly happened when you went to index color mode? Well, index color mode allows you to record up to 256 different colors for an image. But the image and the computer file will only record the colors that are used in the image. So now we have this file, and it's an index color. And if we go over here, and we grab a paintbrush and we want to use, say, this blue. This blue is not currently in the picture. Since it's a standard color, we're getting a pretty true-to-life blue out of it. But if you start using different shades of blue and large amounts of them, you're going to start to have trouble with the colors. They're not going to be true to what you actually picked because you're using index color, which is why when you do your editing, you want to do it in RGB mode and then go ahead and convert to index color to bring the file size down once you're done with an image. Now, there are 2 other modes that you can use if you want to get your file size down, and they are bitmap mode and grayscale mode. Now, let's look at grayscale mode by going up to Image, Mode, and Grayscale. Go ahead and click on that, and that's how you convert to grayscale, and it will ask you discard color information. When you go into grayscale mode or you go into bitmap mode, either of those 2 modes, it's going to throw out the color information that you have for that file, and you can't get it back. So just know that before you go into one of these modes. And then go ahead and hit OK, and now you see your image in grayscale. And in grayscale mode, you're using up to 256 shades, but they're shades of gray, not 256 per color. You have 256 shades of gray in the image. Now we've gone back to the original image here, and we're going to talk about bitmap images. Now, bitmap mode has a bit depth of 1, and that means that it's a very small image. Bitmaps used to be great back in the days when you really needed a very small image. These days, not really used so much, But if you did want to convert to a bitmap image, you do it the same way that you do for grayscale, index color, or RGB mode. You simply go up to your menu bar, go to Image, go to Mode, and select bitmap. So go ahead and hit OK. I'm just going to go ahead and go with the preferences that are already there and hit OK. And there you have a bitmap image. Now that you have some understanding of the different image modes and color models that are used by Photoshop Elements 12, let's talk about color management. The concept of color management just refers to the fact that every device that you use your image on has a slightly different range of colors. And those ranges are called gamuts. And what it means is that the colors that are going to be used in that image are going to be reproduced slightly differently. So they may look different when you print it out versus when you see it on a monitor or when you see it on your phone. The idea of color management is about translating the colors in your digital camera or other devices so that the colors that you see on your monitor before you print are the same colors you see after you print. But in order for your color management to work, you must profile your devices. And you do that by going back up to your menu bar again. And this time you're going to click on Edit. And then come down here to Color Settings. So go ahead and choose the option you want. I'm going to go ahead and leave it the way it is and then hit OK. And let's say that we want to save this image. When you save this image, you just want to make sure that there's a check mark next to the color profile. If it's not checked, then you might have some problems with your image when you bring it to a different device because the color profile wasn't saved, and that device may have problems interpreting the colors that were used in that particular image. So always make sure that you have your color profile saved before you save an image. Now that we've gone through some of the basic technical considerations of color and working with it in Photoshop Elements 12, let's get to the more practical considerations. First, we're going to look and we're going to see that yes, we are in RGB color mode, which is good because we're going to start working with color and editing color. We want to be in that RGB color mode. And if you want to work with color, the first thing you need to know is that there's these two little boxes down here on the left in your tool panel. And these two little boxes are the foreground color, see it says set foreground color, and the background color. The default for this is actually black and white. And if you hit this little arrow, kind of circular arrow here, this will switch your foreground and background colors. See, it tells you switch foreground and background colors. So now you have white as the foreground and black as the background color. The foreground and background color matter because whenever you go and you use one of these painting tools, such as the brush, you're going to be using your foreground color. Also, whenever you use an eraser tool, like here, that's an eraser tool, you're going to be using the background color. Right now it's set to white. So whatever color you have set as your foreground or your background, that's going to be the color that's used when you select one of the painting or erasing tools. So now that you know what the foreground and background colors are, it's going to be important to know how to change them. Well, there are three ways that you can change the foreground and background colors in Photoshop Elements, and they are with the color picker, with the color swatches panel, or with the eyedropper. First off, let's talk about the color picker. And the color picker is probably the most common way to change your foreground and background color. And it's really easy to use. All you have to do is go over to your foreground or background color and click it. And when you click it, you bring up this little dialog box, and it tells you that you're in the color picker, and it also tells you that you're in the foreground color. If you go down here and you click the background color, it will now say you're in the color picker and you're choosing a background color. It may look a little intimidating at first, but the color picker is actually pretty easy to use. And as you can see here, you have to the right HSB and RGB. If those look familiar, that's because that's your two color models. All you need to know is that if you change your color, you will see those values change. Now, below that, you've got this number, a hexadecimal number, and it's another way that you can record color. This really only matters if you have a specific color that you want. You can type in the hexadecimal number directly, Or you can type in the RGB values directly or the HSB values directly into this box, and then this will take you directly to that color. Now, the main thing that you use generally with the color picker is you use this palette right in here. And it gives you a hue, and you can go from white down to black. And then right now, you can see that we're in this blue area, and you can change that by going up or down to select a different hue palette. So you want a green, you go in there, and then you can select anything in this range and pick the color. You don't like that, you want it to be more blue, move the slider more into the blue range, and now you have more of a teal, and you can select the lightness or grayness of that particular teal hue. Now you'll see down here it has an only web colors box. If you check this box, it's going to give you a much more restricted palette to choose from. So let's go ahead and check that, and I'll show you how that works. Now, instead of having this wide range of colors, you have just specific slices of color. These days, a lot more colors can be produced on the web, so using Websafe Colors is not nearly as important as it was back maybe a decade ago. But you can still choose Websafe Colors if that's the palette that you want to go with. But for the most part, you're probably just going to leave that unchecked. So when you're happy with the color that you've selected, go ahead and hit OK. And since we were in the background, you'll see it set as a background, and that's how to use the color picker. Next, we're going to talk about the Color Swatches panel. The Color Swatches panel is really great for storing and using colors that you often use in your images. If you're working on this image and you're turning it into a graphic for some reason, and you want to use a specific color palette for maybe the text, you can go into your Color Swatches panel and select 3 colors and put them in your panel, and then have them available to use while you're working with the program. Let's show you how that works. First off, you need to bring up the Color Swatches panel. And you do that by going up to your menu bar and going to Window. And you're going to come down here and you're going to find Swatches. Click on that, and then you'll see all of these colors up here. Those are your color swatches, the ones that are available to you. And when you click on a color, let's go with this light blue here, it changes your foreground color immediately into that color. Maybe you don't like that light blue, so maybe you want to go to a different color. So you can go to, say, this magenta. Click it again. Once again, your foreground color has changed to this magenta. Now you can take your paintbrush and you can go ahead and paint with magenta. You can also change the background color while you're in the color swatches. But to change the background color, what you have to do is when you click on a swatch, you're going to control click when you pick a color. So let's say we want to go with black. We're going to hit control and then click, and then that selects your background color. One of the best uses of the color swatch panel is to be able to have a color that you're using within your image and be able to go back to it and get exactly that color. If you're using your color picker, you might pick a color like that one right there. Once your color is set, you're going to come over here to your color swatch panel and you're going to click on this, and that's your new swatch button, and it says create new color swatch of foreground color. Go ahead and click that, and you'll see at the end of your color palette you now have the color that you selected. So now you can go and you can change your color to a darker color and hit OK, and you can make that one a new swatch too. And you'll have these two available so that when you're done using this color, you can easily go right back to that color there. And you did it by creating new swatches. So now that you've added color swatches to your panel, you may be wondering, how do you delete a color swatch? Well, it's pretty simple. You just select the swatch, and then you come up here and you're going to drag your swatch to this recycling bin or the trash can. And then you're going to get a dialog box, and it's going to say, are you sure you want to delete the color swatch? Go ahead and hit OK. And that gets rid of your swatch. Now, the third way that you can select color in Photoshop Elements 12 is by using a tool called the Eyedropper tool. And it's a tool that I actually use a lot. It's very convenient. And the Eyedropper tool is going to be on this left-hand side in the tool panel. And it's right above the Type tool. This T is the Type tool. And it looks like an eyedropper. And you just go ahead and you click on that. It allows you to come over to your image and go in and select a color based on whatever it's sitting over in the image. For instance, right now we're over, I think, an area of green. So you go ahead and you click it, and you can see that it's selected this green here. And that's going to finish our primer on the basics of color in Photoshop Elements 12. In the next lesson, we're going to talk about the painting tools.